Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.
Hello, this is Werewolf the Podcast. I'm Will and this is episode 7. Please go check out the other episodes, this will make a bit more sense. To let you catch up, I'm currently being interrogated by the British Army. They've just asked me how I became a werewolf. So here we go. One of my first recollections was of me in my cot, a tiny baby. I have a first memory, not of a when, but of a what. I remember hearing some snuffling and sensed a movement from the floor very close to me. I've no idea how old I was, but I knew or sensed that something was in this darkened room with me, and it seemed to be sort of encroaching on my personal space and breathing strangely. There was an overpowering musky smell, and whatever the thing was in the bedroom, it moved around the floor as though searching for something. It would often pause in silence before continuing again with its snuffling search. This was the 1970s, so my mum and dad had none of that baby monitoring nonsense we see today, so I don't think they ever heard it. Maybe they could never have heard it anyway. Perhaps it was just me who could. I'm not sure. I can't remember seeing anything at first. Maybe it was because I was too young. Probably my sight hadn't developed appropriately at that point. I've no idea, but it was a presence in the room, and not really a comfortable presence either. It didn't feel right, even to my baby mind. It felt like the thing was definitely searching for something, and even at that point, I thought that something was me. Then one night, something big nudged the cot, just briefly. The nudger then stopped as though it had bumped into something it had not seen. It knocked the bed another time, and in moving, it gave me a shake. This must have disturbed me, and I gurgled. I think that one small noise changed my life and made it what it is now. Whatever it was that had done the nudging, it had noticed me for the first time, and its breathing intensified and it became still and focused. I remember turning my head towards the area the noise had come from and seeing a large, yellow eye looking through the slats between the side of my cot. It had found me. But I didn't yell, and I didn't cry. I was just kind of interested. It might have been me being able to remember more as I grew and developed my senses, or it may have been that the thing became a more frequent visitor to my room, but I sensed its presence more and more. It was infrequently showing itself, but it was just there. I could feel it, smell it, and hear it in the background. As I grew older, I just got used to it. Sometimes I would see a dark shadow in the night. Sometimes I would see an eye or a flash of tooth, and as I grew and became more mobile, I saw more and more of it. It just became normal. And then one night, it happened. I don't know why this night was chosen, but I remember it clearly. My parents had positioned the cot so that its foot faced the doorway. My mother left the bedroom door open and the hall light on to bring some light into the room for my comfort. The shadows that presented themselves at the door at night were the reassuring shapes of my parents as they checked on me or came to suit my needs, be that, food or changing my nappy. This particular shadow at the doorway was definitely not my parents' shadow. It was a large black shape, a shape that poked my ancestral DNA and shouted at me to be frightened, to scream for help, to get away. Even at this young age, I was able to control my emotional self. I could ignore these sensations and be just more interested in what it was. It definitely grabbed my attention. It moved from the doorway to the base of my bed in utter silence. It loomed. I love the word loomed. It loomed over the cot as it slowly came into the light. It was a black-haired wolf thing. Not that I knew what a wolf looked like then. It was not in the right proportions though. Its wolfy things seemed overly pronounced on its body. Its teeth and eyes and ears and paws were all too large for the rest of its form. It focused on me. Its breath was stale and its eyes were boring into mine. They were strangely hypnotic and actually reassuring in a way. It was most definitely black. Not black like a typical black piece of clothing or painted thing, but genuinely black. Its shadowy body swallowed any of the little light that entered the room and made that body pure darkness. As it moved forward, it brought its head down to the edge of the cot and leant its bottom jaw there, just looking at me down the line of its canine snout. It just stood there and stared at me as though it wanted something, yet it was afraid to ask. I just stared back, trying to take in the whole of the thing and looking at the majesty of it. It was indeed a beautiful sight. I then remember a voice in my head, not saying something I understood, but asking me to come to it. I turned over onto my belly and made my way to the monstrous face at the end of the bed. I was now crawling towards it and wanting to touch it. I wanted to be with it. The giant head started to growl audibly. It curled its lips and showed its massive teeth as the snarl got louder. I was fascinated at this, and as saliva dripped from the fangs onto the cover of the bed, I continued to move towards it. As I got under the head, I raised a hand. The beast shied away and looked as though it was going to snap and bite at first. It was as if it was slightly worried about the outcome of this moment. It actually seemed a little scared. It then made its mind up and brought its head back towards me and to a distance where I could actually touch its chin. I don't know what happened at that point as I reached up, but I felt love, like true love, or what I think of love anyway. The first time that I'd felt anything like that in my life, a care for me that would never now be gone. I knew we were together, we were one thing. The growling had stopped and the sniffing and snuffling of every inch of me began. The nose pushed me and it started nudging me and snuffling at my scent, much in the way a mother dog does to her pups. I giggled as it did this to me, pushing me around playfully and letting it explore me. When it had seemed to satisfy itself and had stopped nuzzling me, I used his nose to pull myself up to standing. Putting both arms around the muzzle of his snout, and I pushed my head against it. It was warm and smelled now. Well, it smelled right. I rubbed my head against his and felt so much. He suddenly knocked me away from him with a flick of his nose so that I fell on my bum, and I giggled again. It laughed in my head, and I felt it think, hello. Then he licked my face with a tongue that was larger than me, the warm saliva covering my face, and strangely, again, it felt correct and unique. This was it. I call it a posit. I named him later in life Fenrir. I don't know why it's called a posit, but I called it that as it's just a fact that he's never left me. He never judged me. He never stopped me from doing anything I wanted to. He helped me and granted me the power to achieve whatever I wanted. He was the werewolf part of me. Have you ever read The Golden Compass? I thought that author might have known something about posits. You know, the soul creatures that the people in his universe have. They were all different creatures in that book, though. The posits are, as far as I am aware, just wolfen. This posit was my werewolf bit, and we were inseparable from that point onwards. No one else could see him, and as a youngster I would tell people about him, and they would think I had a strange imaginary friend. We talked to each other through telepathy. He also made noises with his face, but obviously a wolf has not really evolved to speak, so they were not the noises of any language or anything that could be recognised as a language. He told me about his history, of the great things that he had achieved with people. I was one of 5 other people to whom he'd been linked. The posit would tap into my brain. He especially did this when I slept and would push the stories of his past into my mind. My dreams were full of screams, full of murder, death, destruction, and my favourite thing, the beautiful and bright blood. I learnt to do the things that a werewolf would need to do. To hunt was my favourite, to hunt, trap and kill. I learnt the skills of the wolf. I learnt the skills of the werewolf and the skills of the man that would need to be developed to be the wolf. Each dream was a story and a lesson. Yeah, a lesson that would be taken from each one of those dreams. As a teacher, he's pretty excellent. He knew how my mind works and he helped me construct the brain that could work with him and contain him when needed. It was beautiful. The main thing about my posit was he was always there as he isn't here now. He's sat by me, my constant companion and best friend. He taught me about my life to be the fact that humans, as he called them, would hate us and how they were our prey, only really worthy of us killing or using them for any of our requirements in life. He taught me how much fun it would be and then could be to kill. He taught me of our past. Werewolves aren't really immortal, they live and die, but the posit stores our collective memories and follows the soul as it is reborn. That's how it kind of works. We're what it's called reborn or whatever. He showed me my history, reintroduced the multiple pasts that I'd had. Gave me back my memories of who and what I'd been. At first they were difficult to accept, but as I was educated in my reason to be, I learnt that what seemed to be horrible acts that I'd committed weren't. They were just me being me. I did not sort of need to justify them. I was just a far superior being, and they, the humans that is, were just my prey. My posit told me of my origin. There had been one wild winter in some mountains somewhere. The posit thinks that it might be Russia, but as he left well before the area had been mapped, he could never find it after leaving. There had been a pack of wolves and a pack of people both starving and hunting each other. This state of affairs was not a good situation for either of them, as one pack, maybe both, would eventually die. So one evening by the light of a full moon, that's where that moon thing comes from, the local shaman had the village take some of the mystical magic mushrooms. These are called fly-agaric mushrooms and are quite poisonous for you if they're not prepared properly. The only safe way to do this was that these mushrooms needed to be processed through another organism. The shaman would usually use the reindeer for this purpose. Reindeer are kept and herded by the people in this area, but by now they had all been killed off and eaten by the people and the wolves. The only animal that they had available for the process was a wolf. They had trapped him the night before. Yeah, I know it sounds like utter bull dung, huh? Well, that's the story. The wolf ate the mushrooms, the shaman collected the wolf's piss, and then distributed it among the small band of villagers that were left. He was hoping that the gods, through this strange process, would grant someone an idea of how to get through the awful situation in which they found themselves. I do realise that it sounds crazy that they were drinking wolf piss with a trippy drug as part of its makeup. It does not seem like it would have happened, but if you think about it, who was the first person to drink the urine anyway? Think about it, who was the first person to think, I know, we will feed these poisonous mushrooms to the deer and then we're going to drink their wee. How did that happen? So the wolf urine gave everyone a shared hallucination where the melded minds, Vulcan style, with the local pack of wolves, which also at this point wasn't doing too well in the inclement minus 54 degrees centigrade that it was at the time. The humans during this shared trip came to some deal where the wolves would give their spirits to the people, and having done so, both packs could survive the winter in a new strange combination. So by some shaman magic thing, the wolves released their posits so that they could combine with the humans and became a joint force for their survival. The deal always seemed a bit one-sided to me. The wolves were sacrificed in a very bloody, shamanic, proper religious rite. The creature's spirits chose a human host from the humans on that day. The human the wolf's soul chose would eat the heart of the wolf that chose them. They ate it raw too. That's proper doing magical things, eating it raw, as humans find raw meat difficult to swallow, literally. Then there was a big feast, mostly of wolf, with a side order of wolf and wolf to follow. They may have had a cheese board at the end. Who knows? The chosen humans all lived extraordinary lives. They also ate the other members of their tribe quite soon after. Why not? Seemed a little unfair that the wolves sacrificed themselves, but then the posit told me how they worked it out in between them. The wolf's spirit would become immortal, while the human would stay under the control of the posit. If the posit wanted to stay with the human, then the human would be timeless too. They would age to the point that the posit felt comfy. Then be that age until the posit wanted out of the relationship. It may have been the wolf's aging dog years or some such shit, who knows. The posits were independent but able to bind with the human when needed, or if it was the full moon, when for some reason they really had no choice. They could be fully independent if they wished, those posits, but this would mean a very lonely life. They tried to take humans on from the same tribe, but would have to be careful who they chose. The deposits would then be passed on from human to human for all time. Not a bad deal when you think about it in those terms. So happily the wolves and humans worked it out, and the human band survived and became the first tribe of werewolves that ever existed. It's a remarkable story. I don't know how true it is, but it sounds like it could have happened. Maybe it could be science, or it could be magic, or it could be fucking bollocks for all I, The posits could always move on and find a fresh person that had some relation to these first members of the tribe when they wanted to. I suppose we would talk about something related to them finding the DNA of their ancestors these days. Something like that. The posit would also find the best human mind that would match their own. This would mean that the relationship would be more likely to be successful. Once bound to a human, the posit could leave them if they wanted to, so they would often bounce around from person to person until they found a particular individual they liked, and someone who could actually mentally deal with the idea that they'd just been linked to a spirit wolf. As you can probably guess, not many people can deal with that. Most people think that they're having a psychotic episode. Once the posit left, then the human would start to age again. The chief smiled at this and nodded his incredulity. I think that's a word. Incredulity? That's whatever it is. It's magic, I said. I don't get it either. My posit is a dark one. He enjoys the simple, cruel pleasures of life. We both dislike the society that surrounds us, the sheep that call themselves people. I wish I'd thought of the term sheeple. I know it's overused at the moment, but that was a guy named W.R. Anderson in 1945 where he wrote, "The simple truth is that you can get away with anything in government. That covers almost all the evils of time. Once in, nobody apparently can turn you out. The people, as ever I spell it sheeple, will stand anything. People are docile, compliant, or easily influenced people likened to sheep." He had found a matching mind in me and my posit, a superior intellect, he told me. He was my father figure and my guardian as I grew. He taught me about the truth of life and how to be. Just be. Not consider anything else. As a baby, he held me back, not allowing transformations, only sharing stories of his youth to my quiet mind. He told me of his past, and I had the constant reassurance of his present. He was there always, and I never cried as a child. It became a worry to my human parents. His name is Fenrir. I call him the posit. He is a wolf soul. That is the story of our get-together. "Okay, Will, that's some story that you've there," the chief paused. "How many people do you think you've actually killed?" asked the grizzled old warrior. I could see and sense that he was not really enjoying this journey into my mind. He was uncomfortable and angry at me and my life choices. I could work on that. I could work on that aspect of his nature. I could see if I could poke the bear with a stick to make it lose its cool. "I've no idea how many I've killed," I said with a shrug and a smile. "I don't really bother counting. They die so easy and in such numbers," I replied. The old man sniffed, and I could sense the emotion in him change as he went from calm to wanting to hurt me. This was fun. I was able to do this to him while locked away. "Okay, Will, you've no idea how many you've killed. Well, when was your first kill?" he asked. "What do you mean, like humans or anything?" I said. "You know what I bloody mean. I bloody mean humans, you." Oh, the anger and the frustration were building in this man. "Okay," I replied as I looked up at the ceiling and put an index finger on my chin, as though deep in thought. I paused for some time and then needed some clarification. "Do you include your young?" He leant forward and with a tinge of curiosity, he said, "Yes, Will. Killing kids is included." "Oh, I didn't know if they were worth inclusion. I mean, they're really too easy to kill, are they not?" "Well then," I paused, hoping he would give me his name. He didn't. "Well then, I will give you the story of my first kill. And that's the next episode, guys. Thanks for listening. Love you.
Brought to you in association with Grendel Press. This is Werewolf the Podcast, a serial killer drama.